Alright, kumusta? Alright. So maybe some of you, this is gonna be the first time that I'll meet you guys. But if I'm not mistaken, last semester, I was your instructor for ITS 101. So for those who were under me 2 semesters ago, welcome back, guys. I'm glad to be able to be handling your subjects again. And it's just sad to go on. It's just sad to think about that this is gonna be your second year in NORSU, but you haven't been wala pa gyapon ta kataas sa NORSU, right? But I guess it's okay. Everyone's experiencing it. The entire world experiencing it, and we just have to do our part. And say atong what would be the best contribution that we can do is to to keep ourselves from the exposure of the virus. All right. So again, welcome to ITS 208 and CSC 209. This is graphics and visual computing. Today's going to be our very first class. So first, we're going to have our course orientation. So I'm pretty sure everybody has already have an idea what would be the orientation is all about since we've done this before. And after the orientation, we're going to we're going to have our first lesson in graphics and visual computing. So to those papakailan ako, I am Julius R. Publico. You can call me Jules. I'm a full-time IT instructor here in NORSU Bais. I graduated BS Information Technology in NORSU Bais as well. And right now, I'm currently completing my units for Master of Science in Information Technology in NORSU Dumaguete. So, my apologies if dili kayo ko ni madungog. Nabili na nga ako ang microphone sa mga balay. So I'm just using the default microphone sa akong laptop. So I'm not sure if you can hear me clearly. But just in case if you have any clarifications, maybe dili ko madungog kaayo, just let me know, okay? Right, I'll take the silence as a yes. Okay, so if you have any questions or clarifications, share it with the class or by the end of this orientation. So today, as part of our orientation, we're going to talk about online and modular learning, learning management systems, Google Classroom, and Facebook Messenger. Our course summary and our class arrangement, and of course, we'll talk about our course requirements and the tools for graphics and visual computing. So I'm pretty sure you already know that here in NORSU, we'll be doing online class most of the time. And then for us to conduct our classes, we'll have to utilize a platform in which um, we can implement our classes. That will be through the use of learning management system. So I guess everybody already have an idea what that is. Basically, it's a software application used to plan, implement, and assess learning process. So in other words, it's also called online classroom. So what would be the learning management system that we'll be using so far based on your experience from the previous years? Ito siguro. All right. I was asking is if you can remember what was the LMS or the learning management system that we used that you've used in the past semester. Okay. All right. Okay. So well, thanks to Google Corporation, we'll be using Google Classroom as our LMS, and then of course we'll be backing it up with the Messenger, Facebook Messenger, because I guess everybody uses Messenger, right? That's the easiest way on how we can communicate with each other. So again, the LMS that we'll be using will be Google Classroom, and then we're going to back it up with Facebook Messenger. So I guess everybody already know this, of course. We'll be using Google Classroom for our assignments and projects. So to access Google Classroom, you can install it on your phone, or you can use browsers for to those who are using desktop computers or laptop computers. Just go to classroom.google.com. Alright, so I'm pretty sure everybody's already joined in to our respective sections Google Classroom, but for those who haven't joined in yet, so here are the links. So for section A, I'm sorry, this is section B, right? Okay, so for ITS 208 section B, this would be the link, or you can go to classroom.google.com and then type this code. Right? Again, if you haven't joined in our classroom yet. And then for CSC 209, nabatay CSC 209 ron? You join? Okay. All right. And nalimot ko gingon. Okay, okay guys, this class will be let's say is a merge. Gimerge na ko ang CSC 209 and ITS 208 section B and CSC 209. There are only one section for CSC 209, so there aren't any reason to say the section, but let's just say CSC 209. Okay, so again, CSC 209 and ITS 208 section B. This would be our permanent link. Okay, the Google Classroom. I'm sorry, the Google Meet. This would be our permanent link. But the schedule depends on the class. We're just going to decide it every week. So here are the things that we're going to learn for ITS 208 and CSE 209. So basically this is our course summary. So what are the things that we're going to learn? So there might be chance that mausog na siya. It's because of the situation that we're currently in, there might be a chance na magkausap-usap ang dagan sa panahon or something like that. But as of now, this would be my proposed um, learning objectives. Kumbaga, I'm not learning objectives, but the list of topics that we're going to take for the entire semester. So first is we're going to discuss what is graphics and visual computing. That's the introduction. And then we're going to talk about the creative process. We're going to talk about the different design elements, and then the principles of graphic design, and on the second half of the semester, we're going to learn the industry standard design software. We have Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe InDesign. Now, not everybody has computers or personal computers, laptop, or desktop at home, where the only way that you can use this, like Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and InDesign, so it might be a little bit complicated. That's why on the last part, hopefully mahuman nato ning tulo ka Adobe softwares. We're going to discuss about Canva, because Canva is one of the most commonly used designing platforms nowadays, since pwede rin siya magamit using phones. So our priority would be Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. The InDesign may be a little bit ambitious na kayo ang Adobe InDesign, but just in case may napatay time to discuss it, we're going to include Adobe InDesign to our lessons. But again, the priority will be Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, and Canva. Do you understand? Okay. All right. So before we proceed, do you have any clarifications, or is there anything else that you would like to add, or any let's say comment regarding our course summary? Do you have anything that you'd like to add or remove? Something that you'd like to be removed? Okay lang tana. Guys, agree na mo sa atong course summary. All right. Actually, if based na to sa course syllabus that I prepared, dagan tang mga discussion nga but since we have very limited time, very limited resources during this um, modular learning, so higamay lang ng mga topics, and we're just going to focus on the practical. We're going to be taking a practical approach in learning graphics and visual computing. So class arrangements, I know everybody already familiar with the class arrangements. So we will conduct a asynchronous class. When we say synchronous class, the one that we're doing right now, meaning live through Google Meet, at least once a week only. So we don't necessarily have to meet every day. We're just going to meet once a week. But each class may last for about 1 to 2 hours. So please excuse me lang if mataas-taas atong klase, because we're only going to have one class, or yeah, once a week na class. So medyo taas-taas na lang na to, diba? Since based on our curriculum, we are asking 5 hours man gani dapat, bali 3 hours discussion and 2 hours na hands-on. But since we're doing this online class naman, we're just going to do it for about 1 to 2 hours or maybe more depending on the coverage of the topic. If taas kayong coverage sa topic, then there might be chance na mataas-taas, but most of the time 1 to 2 hours lang. And in case if dili ta ka klase through Google Meet, I will upload a pre-recorded or replay of class every week to my YouTube channel. The assignment and assessment activities will be followed. And then during asynchronous learning, taking the assessment activity on time will credit your attendance for the week. The assessment activities will be done through Google Form. So basically, it's the same thing that we've had uh, last in the previous semesters. And then assignment will be posted through Google Classroom. And then our assignment will be divided into two groups. Okay, so this is specifically when we're already having our hands-on activities. Let's say Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign. Not everybody has computers at home, diba? So we're going to divide you guys, the assignments rather, will be divided into two groups. So those students who have PC or laptop will perform hands-on activities based on the information provided in the class. So I'm going to teach you how to use Adobe Photoshop. We're going to be discussing the techniques, something like, and so on and so forth. And then those who have computers at home will perform the hands-on activities. But those who don't have PC or laptop will write narrative instruction on how to perform the said activity. Does that sound fair? Fair lang ba siya? Okay, okay. I hope that you guys understand because again, not everybody have computers, and obviously, those who have computers at home, they can perform. They can perform the activities, diba? Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator. They can perform that because they have computers. But those who doesn't have any computers, of course, di nato sila mapugos, di nato tamo mapugos. But maybe to to make it fair to those who have computers, I'm going to have you write a narrative instruction on how to perform the said activity. So how exactly are you going to do that? Allow me to show you an example. So this. So actually, it would be the same case. Makita lang sa inyong screen. All right. So for example, we're going to have an activity using Adobe Photoshop that you're going to create an activity or I'm sorry, an artwork that looks something like this, right? So obviously you have to fun inyo ni buhaton on your own, and then I'm going to give, and then for those who will be using laptops or I'm sorry, those who doesn't have any laptop or computers, this is what you're going to do. You're going to write an instruction or step-by-step instruction in how to perform it. You don't necessarily have to include this screenshots, of course, because asam kami kita screenshot. But you're just going to write the step-by-step procedure. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be, necessarily detailed gid kaayo, but just to get the idea on how to do it. So for example, step one, open Photoshop document. Step two, fill the background layer with black. For example, how to create this artwork. So first is open new Photoshop document and fill the background layer with black, just like this. Step three, add your text, so on and so forth. Alright, so I know it might be a little bit complicated, but I'm hoping that you guys will understand and you will find it fair for everyone. Alright, so do you have any questions so far with our class arrangement? Go ahead. Sige, Andaya, go ahead. Na may class 2 to 3. Okay. Anyway, karon rabitaw, karon ramanon ko ka Classic Friday. So it doesn't necessarily have to be Friday yun. Okay? Every day mo magklase sa 2 to 3 dili. All right. Sige. So if that's the case, then we'll try it any other day aside from Friday, so that we can either do our class on Thursdays or Wednesdays. No, no, no. About that. Okay, not a problem. Alright, but anyway, again, the link will be this link, the Google Meet link that I have prepared, the one that we are currently on right now, will be permanent, but the schedule may change every week. So for example, this week we will meet Friday, next week we will meet Thursdays because, you know, kasi mag-procrastinate mo sir good. Bitaw. Anyway, because of, there are a lot of things that needs to be done. But, okay, ano lang. So pa, napailan question? Pantilope, go ahead. Mm. Mm. It will be the same. I'll give you at least a week to work on your assignment, man. So regardless if you'll be using laptop or computers, or you'll be using, you'll be writing a narrative instruction, I'll give you a week. So I guess that would be pretty enough. I think that would be enough for the assignment. Anyway, we're not going to be having an assignment na grabe yung kaayo, just the basic ones because, again, our goal here, not again, but our goal in learning graphics and visual computing is to get the hang of using those, the industry standard applications like like Adobe Photoshop. You don't necessarily have to master it because mastering Photoshop, mastering graphics designing would be totally up to you. The only thing that we're going to do in this class is I'm going to introduce to you the software, learn how to use it. I'll provide you with the principles of designs, and then you just have to apply it on your own. Because this is kuan man, if ganahan kang makabalo, ganahan kang ma-master sa og Adobe Photoshop, kuan siya, mura siya og I'm not siguro it could be skill based na siya ba? Skill based. And not everyone has the skill um, really doing graphic design, di ba? So I'm just going to introduce you to you the software, teach you how to use it, and then provide you with the necessary steps or principles on how to create a design. I don't know. So I guess 1 week would be enough. Am I right? Agree ba? 1 week. So every time nga naatay assessment, I'm sorry, every time nga naatay assignment, I'll give you guys enough time to prepare it. Alright. Napilang question um, regarding our class arrangements? Go ahead. Question. Yes. I'll inform you at least 2 days, 1 or 2 days. I understand nga gahapon lang ko naka-inform ninyo. It's because okay lang yung reason. But anyway, thank you guys for joining the class for such short notice. But again, on our future lessons, I'm going to inform you at least 2 days. I guess that will be or a couple of days before the schedule. Na lang. Okay lang ba? Misa pa sa did I answer your question? Okay. All right. So if there are no more questions regarding our class arrangements, let's proceed. So again, all of our classes, including the one that we are doing right now, I'm going to upload it to our YouTube channel. So this would be the link, and then basically you can rewatch it. Gonna mo review, or this is basically to give chance to our classmates na wala back then. You can still watch it, or if you decide to review, then you can just watch it on our YouTube channel. So this would be the link. And anyway, right after we end our class, I'm going to send you the link right away to the uploaded video or replay. And then our course requirements would be basically it would be the same thing that we've had a couple semesters ago. Attendance would be 10%. Assignment that will be 20%. Learning activities or assessments that's 20%. Projects that's 20%, and major examinations is third. Major examination like midterm and final It's 30%. That is a total of 100%. So I just want to clarify on the attendance. The attendance, regardless if it's going to be online or modular, medyo makalibog kay gibutangan ako modular. But what I meant is, right now, of course, since we're doing our online class, my Google Chrome will automatically, karon as of now, while we are talking, ka-list na siya kinsay ni join, how how much unsa man na unsa kataas nga ni join. For example, na ni join ron then exit, mabala na ako na right now it's being currently it's being recorded by Google Chrome. So basically, if you've attended the class during this online or live online classes like what we're doing right now, so it'll be 10%. However, if go ahead, Galera. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, for the attendance, I don't really, wala good kayo ko ga strict kayo attendance. So, if mo join, mas maayo. If dili, mas okay ra gyapon. That's the reason why I'm only adding 10% of it. And in fact, to be brutally honest, based on my experiences in the previous years, previous semesters, ang attendance perfect na lamang dyan ako para matungagan ang grado sa mga gagmayra. To be honest. Alright. But it's okay. For those who katong dili ka join because wala internet, they can still rewatch it. I guess that's important. That's more important is to learn. Anyway, the attendance is only 10% of my board. But ano lang. And then if, for example, dili ko ka klase, di ba, as just like what I've said, just like what I've discussed on our class arrangement, there might be some week na dili ko makaklase. So instead, I'm just going to upload a pre-recorded class, meaning upload ako klase. And then if you can take the assessment on time, that will credit you for your attendance for the entire week. Ano lang. Okay? And then here, projects. I don't think I can give you any projects because of the situation that we're currently in. We're currently in. So instead, whatever it is that you'll grade, sorry, pagkarong grammar. Kuan, ang inyong grado sa inyong assignment would be the same with your project. So for example, you get 20% for your assignment, then automatically you get 20% of your projects. Ano lang. So that's what I've been doing for the past semesters. It's because I really can't ask for any other special project since the assignment will be, I think that will be more than enough for the situation that we're currently in. Alright, so the tools for graphics and visual computing. So here it is, guys. So notice that I'm only listing for those who have desktop PC and laptop computers. So please install Adobe Photoshop. It would be best if you'll be installing creative 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 cloud, the CC version, creative cloud or CS. Actually, please disregard the CS version. So whenever you're going to search it, most of the time you'll be seeing CC instead of CS. Ang CS karaan na kaayo. And then the CC version, especially 2019 or later or newer, it's mas sayon siya nga gamiton compared to the older versions of Adobe Photoshop. So if there's any way that you can install Adobe Photoshop on your own, make sure to select CC version, meaning Creative Cloud, 2019 or newer. So if na 2020, mas maayo. If na 2021, mas maayo. Na 2022, mas maayo. Anyway, I'll try to provide you with the links. Nga kanang, I'll try to find a link na pwede nyo ma-download. And then once we're done with the Photoshop, we're going to continue with Adobe Illustrator. So same thing, CC. Just disregard the CS. We'll no longer be using CS. Kailangan na dyan na siya kayo. So again, CC 2019 or later or newer, if possible. And then InDesign. Kani InDesign, ipaulhay lang nato because there might be chance na dili nato ma-apply ang InDesign. But just in case, we will use the CC still, CC 2015 or later, if possible. Alright, so that's it for the desktop and laptop computers. Because for mobile For those who doesn't have any personal computers or laptops, diba? Like I said, you're just going to write the step-by-step procedure, so you don't necessarily have to install anything. However, once we're done with all of the Adobe programs, we're going to learn Canva. So for Canva, the only thing that we're going to do is you just have to install the application. It's free to download through Google Play Store, Canva, or you can also use browser like Google Chrome. Okay. So before we end our orientation, do you have any questions, guys? Do you have any other questions? All right. Okay, that's great. So let's proceed to our very first lesson. Hold on. All right. So for our very first lesson, we're going to talk about the introduction to graphics and visual computing. So first and foremost, I'd like to ask if, from any one of you who would like to share what exactly is graphics and visual computing is all about. Anyone who would like to volunteer or to share their idea what graphics and visual computing is all about. Kinsa mo share silang idea before we start. Or what would be your expectation? Anyone? Wala mo volunteer? Ganun yung tawag ko name? Sige na. Go ahead, pass the line. Alright, thank you, Pastor. That's right. Alright, so from the term suggests graphics, visual computing. So basically, uh, we've had this discussion with the rest of the faculty, the CSIT faculty here in Bais, NORSU Bais rather. We've had this discussion when the graphics and visual computing started, was introduced to the curriculum. When we say visual computing, it's just a fancy way of graphics designing, diba? Visual computing. So basically, you're going to use the computers to using computers in creating graphics, creating visual elements, something like that. So basically, when you say graphics and visual computing, yeah, I would agree with Miss Acosalan. With Miss Acosalan, it's all about maybe it's all about understanding how to, or I'm sorry, mastering how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, or any other industry standard applications. Yeah, that's correct. However, graphics and visual computing is more understanding, not because everyone can design, right? Even dili IT, dili com side, everyone can design. Diba? Bisag ako ron. For example, I am a kuan ko, business administration akong course. And I just fancy looking at kuan, nindot kay mga graphics, and I decided to practice it on my own. So, I can do that, diba? Because on there are no limit who can practice graphics designing. Bisa kinsa pwede makapractice. But by introducing this course to IT and ComSci, we will get a deeper idea on um, on the different principles of designs, how to determine a good design, how to create a good design, and what basically it will give us the difference between us and the katong gayon ng business ad. For example, business ad nga student. What would be the difference between you and a business ad if both of you are good in designing? So if ikaw nga IT, maay ka mo design, ang imong amigo nga business ad, maay po siyang mo design, unsa inyong difference niyo duha? So by introducing the graphics and visual computing to the IT students, you'll get a better edge. Better edge. You get an edge. It's because you have better understanding on how to determine if a design is good, nindot ba ng design or dili, because you're going to base it on principles. Because there are principles in designing that you have to learn, right? So basically, it's not just about learning how to use Photoshop or Illustrator, but it is understanding how to use, when to use the elements, how to design it, and what makes your design good. Nana. Okay, so hold on. In this lesson, we're going to talk about what is graphics design, which we already did, but we're going to talk more about it. And then we're going to understand the difference between designer and artist. So sometimes we heard this word, graphic designer, graphic artist. What are the difference between them? And then what are the do's and don'ts in graphic designing? And then lastly, we're going to discuss what are the things that graphic designers do. Okay? So, kani, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Diba? Nakadugtan ni siguro since ever since we were a kid, we already heard this. Suman. So ito gana niya. This phrase, a picture speaks 1,000 words. This is a saying that go back for a while. A good picture indeed can convey information by itself without having dozens of lines of explanation in it. So that's why photographers, di ba? Diba, good photographers can capture a moment that without really having to explain what the moment is all about, but the viewers can understand it. It's because we believe in the saying that says the picture speaks 1,000 words. For a photographer to capture a good picture, he has to wait patiently for the exact moment to get a certain composition. Diba? Because the photographer doesn't have any control on what's going to happen. For example, the cover siya of, let's just say, uh, karon na ang nahitabo ron sa Ukraine and Russia. Maybe na photographer, photojournalist dito nga niya and he really or she wants to capture a perfect moment. He or she doesn't have any control on what's gonna happen because the only weapon that you have is a camera, and then he or she just have to wait for the perfect moment and capture it. So it's a matter of luck. What if dili mo abot ang perfect moment sa pag-picture, diba? That's why a picture speaks 1,000 words. However, in designing, okay, the process of conveying visual information is a lot easier. So again, let's compare in designing and in photography. So photography, again, photographer have to wait for the perfect moment. Magkulat siya nga mo-align ang mga stars and the perfect moment will appear in the front of his lens and then capture it. Wala siya control. Bali paswerte ay lang kung na-capture siya nindot nga moment. But in designing, the process of conveying visual information is a lot easier because a designer can just produce a visual element necessary for his or her own composition. So, since in designing, dili nakakinahanglan mo hulat for the perfect moment because you can create the perfect moment on your own. Diba? For photography, you just have to wait for the perfect moment to convey the message that you're trying to capture. But in designing, you just have to create it. So that's the difference between a photographer and a designer. Is that in designing, it would be a lot easier for us to convey visual information. So good design means good visual communication. So let's take this into um, ito na ibutang sa itong pataka. A good design means a good visual communication. So that is one of the goal for graphic designers is to convey the information or to convey the communication. Whatever it is that they're trying to convey, it must be conveyed um, perfectly or maybe uh, uh, properly. Okay. So maybe some of you right now is asking, "Okay, di mo ko artist. Dili mo ko artist. Do I have what it takes to be a designer? Do I have what it takes to be an artist? Makapasar ba ko ni subject? Well, let's take a look at the photo. Let's take a look at the photo for now. Ay lang sa inyo basahan na. So, can everyone please read what does it says? Go ahead. Kinsa ganahan mo basa unsa lang nasa sulod. Sa iyang gisulat. Okay, Lusterio, go ahead. All right. Di ba? Okay, if we're going to take I'm sorry. sorry. Sorry about that. If we're going to take a look at the picture, it says our by just looking at it, makaingon ta nga it says think outside the box. Right. But if we're going to take a look closer, how ginso ni pagkabalo nga ang kani TDI na siya. Yeah. If we're just going to read it according to what we see, we can just ang mabasa na to kay think outside the and then I'm not sure what letter is this and then O and X. Diba? You get it? Since we didn't see the T, we didn't see the letter E, we didn't see clearly if B pa na siya. But our mind, pero nga naman, nakaingon ta na think outside the box. What do you think? Ano siguro? Again, let's take a closer look. Do you really think that is letter T? Bearing aside? And do you really think that in this area is letter E? Okay. So, nga naman nga nabasa nato, think outside the box. Nga naman, what do you think would be the explanation? Visual. Okay. Sa man, visual sa man. Okay. Kana, that's one way to put it. But, okay, naiingon gaina nga visual something. Alright? Basically, our mind thinks, bisag wala nato nakita sa itong mata, but our mind automatically uh, fill out the missing letters. Di ba? So, basically, one of the attributes of a good designer is being able to think visually. Although this is very simple na example, but this since you're able to read it, bisag kulang-kulang ang mga letters. But if you're able to read it completely, then you are already thinking visually. So basically, you are seeing things, not really seeing things, but you are seeing the graphics, you are seeing the, the picture outside the box, right? So basically, that is a sign that you are thinking visually. This means a designer can visualize an object or an idea without actually seeing it. Right? So that basically that is one of the attribute of a good designer is that he or she should be able to visualize an object or an idea without actually seeing it. So again, sa wala nato nakita ang letter T, wala nato nakita ang letter E, but we know for a fact, we know that in this area it must be letter T, in this area it must be letter E, it's because we are thinking visually. Alright? So looking at the photo, if you will think outside the box, then you have what it takes to be a designer. So again, the only limit, I'm sorry, for to become a designer, the only limit is if you can think outside the box or if you can visualize an object without seeing it. In other words, if you can think visually. Ano lang. Right? And because I met a lot of people who are actually good in appreciating arts. That's why now my arts appreciation, diba? They, they are good in appreciating arts, but they cannot do the art themselves. Nako yung mga in fact, one of the example that I can perhaps one of the one of the people na ako nailhan nga mayo og art. Ano bang kabalo siya mo tanaw og art, pero di siya kabalo mo drawing man lang is Dr. Mir, itong dating dean sa College of Arts and Sciences. She's really good in looking arts. Kabalo siya nga nindot na nga art. And she know how to design it, but dili siya kabalo. She doesn't know how to do it on her own. But kabalo siya kung unsay dapat ibuhaton when it comes to designing. So again, the designer doesn't necessarily have to be good on the tools, but should be able to think visually, right? Do you understand? Do you catch my drift? All right. I feel like I'm gone overselling it, but but again, to not to worry about being a designer, you just have to think visually. All right, graphics and visual computing. So basically, the description of this course can be divided into two. We have graphics, in other words, computer graphics, and then visual computing. So let's try to understand it one by one. Computer graphics is a subfield of computer science which studies methods for digitally synthesizing and manipulating visual content. So that is according to Wikipedia. So computer graphics is a subfield of computer science that studies the methods of digitally synthesizing and manipulating visual content. So from the term suggests, methods for digitally synthesizing. So that is where the skills on using the tools for synthesizing and manipulating visual contents comes into place. That's why we have to learn to use, let's say, Photoshop, Illustrator, because these are the applications that will be used as a method for digitally synthesizing and manipulating visual content, right? So, visual computing is a generic term for all computer science disciplines dealing with images and 3D models, such as computer graphics, image processing, image processing, visualization, computer vision, virtual and augmented reality, and video processing. Some would say visual computing. Basically, these are uh, all all the areas for computer graphics. So, for example, um, 2D animation, 3D animation, graphics design, and image processing. So, for example, if you're going to paggamit og filter sa ato ang Instagram, right? So that is already an area for visual computing. So basically, when it comes to processing or changing how an image look, processing, doing graphics design, so on and so forth, those are visual computing. So, if you're going to combine all of these definition into one, maybe we can say it's all about graphics design. The graphics and visual computing is just a fancy word for graphic design. So, what is graphic design? So, graphic design is the art of profession. It is the art or profession of visual communication that combines images, words, and ideas to convey information to an audience. So, according to Base, one of the I should say greatest designer, but I don't know him. I just saw this quote on through Google, so I'm just including it here. So it's a Base said, "Design is thinking made visible." So basically, again, going back to our definition a while ago, do you have what it takes to become a designer? You just have to think. You should The only thing that you're going to do is to be able to think visually. So designing down is thinking made visible. So everything that you're thinking, and if you're going to translate that, or yeah, translate that into something that others will see, that is already designing. So for example, na kay ginahuna na design, na kay something on your head that you would like others to see. So you're going to draw it, diba? So that is designing. Now, graphic design is the art or profession of visual communication. Take a look at the highlighted words: visual communication and convey information. So there are these, maybe lahi siya of terminologies, but they almost have the same meaning: visual communication and convey information. So when we say visual communication, the way of exchanging ideas and information in forms that is visible. So basically, if you're going to communicate with anybody, diba, daghang ways of communication, right? You can call them, you can text them, diba? You can write them a letter. Ano. So the visual communication is one way of those communications that in the form of, I'm sorry, in forms that is visible. So you can either, if you write your friend a letter, that is visual communication. If you're going to text your friend, through messenger, that is visual communication because the communication is visible. Na ay sa tawag na ay medium or na ay media on in which the communication will take place. Diba? For example, text. Mabasa man nato ang text. So we see it in our eyes, that's why it's called visual communication. Convey information. Convey information is the way of imparting or communicating ideas effectively. Alright? So in doing visual communication, I'm sorry, in in doing graphic design, again the first step is to be able to visually communicate. However, while we are doing visual communication, we have to convey the information that we are trying to say in as effective as we can. Sakto ba? Mag-research na ba? Diba? So we have to make sure that the communication or the information that we are going to convey will be as effective as possible. All right. So that is where graphic design comes into place. So our main goal as graphic designers is to com- visu- visually communicate or communicate visually rather and convey information. In graphic design, your aim is to create something that is pleasing in the eye, gets attention, and conveys the message. So because it's not enough that we are able to convey the information, we're able to communicate visually, it needs to be pleasing to the eye and it needs to get the attention of the audience and of course convey the information. So this would be our aim, our goal in learning or in becoming a graphic designer. We need to create something that is pleasing to the eye, gets the attention, and conveys message. All right. So go ahead, Daya. Okay, not a problem. Anyway, I'll send you guys a link for the replay so you can just watch it later on. Okay? Unsa mga section, Miss Andaya? Section, I'm sorry? Kamutanan? Alright, it's okay. Alright, it's okay. Alright, anyway, thank you for attending the class and please review na lang the replay later on and then I'm going to post an assignment and assessment. And the assessment will, sorry, let me just inform you ahead of time na lang. The assessment will be good up until tonight at 11:59 p.m. So it would be best if after this class you'll be able to watch it right away, okay? Alright. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Katurang section siya, bantay mga to mga ITS ba? ITS, pabilin mo. Alright. Where were we? Nga naman. Edgar, sure. Mas maayo. Mas maayo kung makajoin kami. Sige, stay lang. Alright. Okay. Alright, so where were we? Again, in graphic designing, our aim is to create something that is pleasing to the eye, gets the attention, and conveys a message. So let's talk about pleasing to the eye. This means being creative in using the visual elements needed for the information you are trying to convey. Being creative, however, means there are principles in designing you ought to follow to have a good design. Alright? So again, communicating visually. So one of the things that we're going to make sure is that the design that we're doing must be pleasing to the eye. Don't you worry. We have, diba, like I said, the difference between a trained IT or ComSci, um, because you'll be introduced with the different um, principles of design. So we're going to discuss it in the future. We're going to discuss it in the future on how can we create a design that is pleasing to the eye. So again, that's going to be our first um, aim or goal is to make sure that our design will be pleasing to the eye. Next, gets the attention. A good design can make visual communication even more effective. People tend to be more interested to attract in designs. Getting people's attention first is very important in visual communication. So that is very obvious. So most of us, if ako, me included, guilty, Back when I was a kid, up until right now, I'm only going to read a book if not I drawing. So I'm guilty on that ever since I was a kid. I'm not really a bookworm, but I will only read a book if nasa need of drawing. So what nga naman, it's because maybe the designer or the publisher of that book actually did a very good job in getting my attention that even though dili ko bookworm, makabasa ko sa libro. Right? So that's your second goal. You have to make sure that the design that you'll be doing gets the attention of the viewer or the audience. Getting people's attention is first is very important in visual communication because daghan kayong daghan kayong mga design nga wala take for granted lang it's because wala kayo siya na get of attention. Alright? Alright. Easy to the eyes. Uy, kulang lagi. Convey, okay. So since we've already discussed conveys message a while ago, so basically conveys a message. What are we trying to communicate? What are the message that we are trying to communicate? We have to make sure that we're able to do it in such a way that is pleasing to the eye and gets the attention of the audience. Right, next, designer versus artist. So we've been talking about graphic designing, so on and so forth, but we haven't really discussed what would be the difference between a designer and an artist. So there are two ways one can call themselves when doing a composition. So when say composition, kanang mga artwork. Artists tend to express their emotion, their mood, their ideas, and their views while letting the viewers interpret their works. They mostly don't care about what other people think about their work as long as they're able to express his or her feelings through it. So basically, the artist will just focus on expressing his or her idea, her views, her mood, his views, his mood, and lang. So an artist will just going to draw whatever he'd like, and then lets the audience interpret his work. Wala siya pakialam kung ganahan ang tao sa iyang trabaho dili as long as he's able or she's able to communicate or I'm sorry she's able or he's able to express his feelings, his mood, his vision, his idea, his etc. Alright, so that is an artist. The designer, however, designers make sure that their work will sell. It's their job to carefully enhance and organize visual elements and religiously applying the design principles to make sure it is pleasing to look at, not just to themselves, but to everyone. So the difference between the designer and an artist is that designer have to carefully enhance and organize the designs to make sure na nindot ang design not just to them, but for everyone. Diba? So going back, artists were just going to express their emotion, their mood through artwork, but designer will have to make sure na ang design nindot para nila, nindot po sa uban. Alright? So that's why a designer will follow design principles, will adhere to the proper use of the visual elements to make sure na ang iyang trabaho will sell. Kumbaga, mahalin ang iyang trabaho. Meaning, ganahan ang tanan ba? So, kung ang designer walay pakialam sa uban, ang designer bali. Ganahan siya nga ang iyang design mahalin or maganahan sa tanan tao. Right? So that is the difference between an artist and a designer. So, let me ask you, what do you think would be our goal na lang in learning this course? Graphics and visual computing. By the end of this semester, are we going to be an artist or are we going to be uh, leaning to become a designer? What do you think, guys? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That's good. All right. So that's correct. So, again, um, I want to emphasize that this course is not just for everyone who can draw. This course is not just for everyone who can paint, who know a great deal about art. Okay, because again, what we're going to do in this course is we're going to make sure that we're capable of enhancing and organizing visual elements and applying design principles to our artworks or our compositions. Okay, so let's set it in our minds that in this course we will try to become a designer, not just an artist. All right, you can be an artist on your own, but for us to pass the subject, we're going to be leaning towards to become a designer. Right? So graphic designing means visual problem solving. So dagan na kitang nakatangan about doing graphic design, but again, this is still in continuation the difference between designer and artist. So, again, ang artist, bahala kung saan niya pag-design so long as may express nila yung debate. But in graphic designing, we have to solve any visual problems. It is the job of a designer to make sure to provide solutions to any visual challenges on the design. So, ato dong trabaho is to make sure na ang mga visual problems ma-solve na to. So, what exactly are these visual challenges? One of the common visual problems or visual challenges are clutter design. Designs with more font faces and font weights used more than necessary can be messy. Improper alignment can be disorienting too. This illustration can be pleasing to the artist. Here, let's take a look at this picture on the right side. I'm not sure if makita ba ninyo. But this is an example of a clutter design. There are just too many font faces that are being used. Diba? Daghang kay fonts nga gigamit. And then, disorienting ang iyang iyang alignment dahil ang iyang alignment, all right, and then font weights, we say font weights bold, italic, um na ba, so there are just too many color, too many font weights, too many font base, too many font sizes, and it makes the design disorienting. So this is one example of a this ang sa tito ka to visual design problems ito, visual challenges out of design, a clutter design, right? Do you think, kani, all right, in the eye of the artist, kinsay nag-draw, nagamaani katong artist, maybe this is pleasing to them, to the artist, but it's not gonna, there's no guarantee that this design will sell to everyone, diba? Because of its cluttered design. Do you see it? Agree ba mo nga cluttered ang iyang design? Alright, again, no offense to kinsa nagdamaani. Maybe he or she just feel, drawing this and that. But again, one. He's just doing it to express his feelings, but it doesn't have any guarantee that it will sell or that all other people will love it too. But again, since we are designer, we have to make sure that this type of designs, this visual problem will be solved. So we'll have to eliminate the clutter designs. Next, illegible fonts. When we say illegible fonts, dili mabasa ng mga fonts. One of the purpose of a good graphic design is to convey a message. Using fonts that are hard to read will just spoil the message your design is trying to convey. So, although we mentioned a while ago that a picture speaks a thousand words, but there are just some cases that we have to write text to our then mo add kita kinahanglan mo add og text sa atong composition. And once we do so, we have to make sure that the fonts that we're using will not be illegible. So when we say illegible, dili mabasa man. So let's take a look at what we have in the right here, on the right side of our presentation. Mabasa ba ang mga letters na gigamit? No. Mura na siya sama. Mura siya mga blocks. I'm not sure. Mga boxes ra, and once you at first nimong tan-aw, hindi mo ma-realize na oy text letters na siya. The more that you're going to look at it that's when you realize na text na siya, right? So that's one of the visual challenges, illegible fonts. We have to eliminate those as a designer. And then I guess this one would be the most important. Wrong messages. Maybe the worst problem a design may encounter is the confusion between the message and the picture used in the design. So basically, nag-mix ang iyahang message ba. Especially this is when we're trying to combine text and graphics. And nag-mix siya, um, making a or creating confusion to the viewer. So let's take a closer look at the picture. So on the first part. I'm not sure if you can see it, but if you can't, make sure you're on full screen. So, here, I'm not sure if makita ninyo, but what do you think? Saan nga picture? Kailan mo ano nila? Okay, kinsa man eh. Kitsa goron sila. Can you tell us? Yeah. So, we have here Queen Elizabeth. I'm not sure pila to. Basta si Queen Elizabeth and I'm sorry, kinsa to niya siya si atong asawa ni Prince Charles, Prince William, nangalimot ako. Basta. Alright, so basically these are royal people. Ayan, Kate, karon. So these are royal people, right? But let's take a look at the headline at the bottom. Witchcraft threat to children. So by looking at the picture and the text right below it, it says here witchcraft threat to children. Maybe this picture in here is trying to convey maybe any news about the royal family, but right below it, it talks about witchcraft. So by just looking at the picture, looking at it right here, muratag ang mga witchcraft, mo ni sila yung mga witchcraft. But in fact, this picture totally talks about different topic. And then this, it, right here, kaning witchcraft to children is as another set of topics. Right? So basically, these are what you call wrong messages. Nagka-mix ang iyang messages. So as a graphic designer, we have to make sure that not going to be happening. That's not going to happen to our composition. Right? Next, Burger King. Now, there's a sign here that says SpongeBob is here hiring managers. What do you think? What do you think is wrong with this picture? Can anyone share what's wrong with the picture? Castanyo, go ahead and say okay. All right. I guess this is the actual logo sa Burger King before. So it's fine, kanina pita. But the problem here is, don't you see it? SpongeBob is here hiring managers. So what? I'm sorry. What do you think is the problem? Nga naman. Sige. Kobe Bryant, go ahead. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. But the problem here is the Burger King is trying to convey two message, meaning SpongeBob is here, meaning naa si SpongeBob sulod sa Burger King. And the second message is they are hiring managers. So duwa ka message ay iyang i-convey, right? So SpongeBob is here, meaning naa sa sulod sa Burger King sa SpongeBob. So basically, kung moagi ka, musulod ka sa Burger King, makita nimo si SpongeBob. That's the first message. Second message is they're also hiring managers. So meaning, si Burger King nag-hire po siya of managers. But the way that they write it in the kani is kung basahon na to, murag ningon nga si SpongeBob is here my hiring manager. Since ilang gi-combine ang duha ka message into one kani, murag niingon nga si SpongeBob is here hiring manager. Naa si SpongeBob dire mag-hire siya og manager. But that's not the case because what they're trying to say is that naa si SpongeBob diri sa sulod, at the same time, we are also hiring manager. But because of how they place the sito gani, kana siya poster, I'm not sure. Based on how they write it, it says here that pwede na to siya masayop tagbasa ba. Pwede ta makaingon nga SpongeBob is here hiring manager. Did you get the thought? Murag nausap ang iyahang idea ba? Instead nga mingon siya nga nasa SpongeBob dire, then mag-hire po mi og manager. But ang hitabuan ni kay si SpongeBob na ang mang-hire og manager. Did you get the confusion? All right. Okay, so again, as a graphic designer, we have to make sure that that's not going to happen. So how can we fix this? Saan na to pag-fix siguro ni? O kama lang, same ra gyapon nga thought, SpongeBob is here, hiring manager. So maybe we can either write it on an outline. So for example, let me open up a notebook. For example, we can write it this way. So, for example, ang first line, sorry, putangan natin og outline. Let's say asterisk or dot or something like that. We can say SpongeBob is here. And then on the second line, we can add another outline and let's say hiring manager. Alright? So since we've separated the SpongeBob is here and hiring manager, dili na masay basa nga SpongeBob is here hiring manager. But we're able to separate the two thoughts, the two sentences, diba? Making sure that the idea will be properly conveyed. Diba? Because again, we are trying to convey communication here, man. Diba? So maybe that is one way to fix it. Do you agree? Alright, next. Next picture. Attention. Toilet only for disabled, elderly, pregnant children. What do you think is wrong with the picture? Anyone can share what seems to be a problem with the picture? Okay, alright, that's good. That's a good observation. So, by just looking at it, mura tag ingon ang toilet is only for disabled nga gulang nga bata. I'm sorry, disabled nga gulang nga nabdos nga bata. So basically, if we're going to read it this way, mura siya para siya sa mga bata nga disabled, elderly o nabdos because we didn't separate it with a comma or anything that will separate the disabled from elderly, the pregnant, and the children. So, since wala siya separation, it kani nahimo siyang usa ka thought. So that means para siya sa mga disabled nga gulang nga nabdos nga bata. So, it doesn't really give it doesn't it wasn't able to convey the right information, di ba? So how to fix it? So basically we just have to add comma. So we're going to add a comma. Let's say ngayon nga toilet only for disabled. Okay, we can either do that. Elderly, pregnant, and children. But we can fix it by writing it this way. Or, same thing that we did here, pwede natin himuon nga ulat. Right? Just to make sure that the disabled, the elderly, the pregnant, and the children will be separated from each other. Okay? So last, let's go and taas na itong panahon na gamit. Let's proceed in this picture. Kani. It says here, take action, take control with school. Alright? What's wrong with the picture? Okay. Alright. So nausap ang message. Imbes nga the graphic design or the composition is trying to encourage to quit maybe smoking or something like that. No. Yeah. Instead nga mo convey yung encouragement to quit smoking, but ilang gibutang ang word nga school. So meaning, ga-encourage sila nga mo go to school. Diba? But nagtunggot ang quit o ang school. Diba? So if you're just going to read it this way, then nausab ang iyahang message. Imbes nga nag-encourage sila to quit smoking and encourage them to go to school, nahitabo na encourage mo siya na quit schooling. Right? So these are just the problem of one of the problems designers may encounter. So these are the examples of visual challenges. We have graphic design, legible fonts, wrong messages. So there are tons of examples of visual challenges that every designer must have to have to carefully review para dili mausap ang message, dili makagama of any visual problems. So these are just some of the possible challenges a designer must look into carefully when designing. A good designer will always make sure every visual element will perfectly connect to each other. Next, the do's and don'ts for graphic designing. Well, most people will think that having an existing talent in art, ability to buy expensive designing equipment, are must have to become a designer. The truth is, these are not necessary. These are not necessary. Sorry, these are not really necessary to become an effective one. Here are some of the things everyone should think about when learning graphic design. So again, when you're trying to pursue the the profession of being a graphic designer, some or maybe trying to pursue the skills for graphic designing, you don't necessarily have to buy expensive designing equipment. Okay, so here are the don'ts. No need to be good at drawing. Graphic designers are visually creative. There is no need for any hand-drawn input since everything will be done through photo editing software using computers. You only need to be able to think visually and be very creative in doing it. So again, you don't need to be good at drawing because said ako, I can say that I am a good graphic designer, but I'm not good in drawing. All right, so because you don't necessarily have to be good in drawing when you're trying to become a graphic designer. Because again, one of your goal is to be able to think visually. Naman. You have to be visually creative. So if you have this design on your head, or if you have and then but you cannot translate that into working using your hands, it doesn't really matter since we have computer software to do that for us. Next, no need to spend a lot of money for expensive equipment. Most designing software does not require a very high level of equipment specification. Many designing software are cheap and some of them are even free. That's correct. Even nowadays we have Canva. So using Canva, it's free to use. And you just have to use your phone. Diba? Di na siya mag-require of high level ng mga equipment specification. Di na nakakinahanglan palit yung graphic tablet, di na nakakinahanglan palit yung i7 10th gen processor because you can just use it using your phone. Well, no need to spend a lot of money for expensive equipment. Next, no need to spend a lot of years in studying. Anybody can learn graphic design without spending too much time and money learning it in schools. There are a lot of tutorials and other learning platforms that offer graphic design courses online. However, okay, so although it may be a little bit, kanina first part is medyo negative siya. However, learning the fundamentals of it in a proper school or university makes you become a professional at it. You'll be more entitled to polish yourself with professional graphic designers. More companies will prefer you compared to designers who learn graphic design for themselves. Alright. So yes, well, it is true that there is no need to spend a lot of money or a lot of years in studying graphic design because basically you can just literally watch it online tutorials or watch online tutorials rather. But whenever you're going to study it in university, just like what we're doing right now, it gives us an edge. You'll be more entitled to call yourself a professional. So that's why mo tong gisulti kaina, what what would be the difference between ikaw nga maayong mo design, ikaw nga IT or comsci nga maayong mo design compared to your class up to you compared to a friend na let's say let's say BSBA or business administration yung kabalo mo design. So what would be the difference between you two? Ikaw nga trained in a university or college and siya nga tutorial ra. Right? Obviously, more companies will prefer you is because they know since you are a trained or academically trained na designer, they know na you have the more chances na ikaw mas nakabalo ka when it comes to the principle of design, so on and so forth. Right? So that is the difference. That's the reason why we still have, although there's no need to spend a lot of years, but it's still better if you can do so. Now, although all of these are not really necessary in starting to learn graphic designing, having these abilities will give you edge and easier access in getting better output. However, here are the things every graphic designer must have to become effective. So let's go back. Well, it's true that there's no need to be good at drawing, but it's a plus. Mas ma, it's a plus. Mura big kuan, bonus na siya ang kabalo mo drawing. Next, there's no need to spend a lot of money for expensive equipment, but it would be a bonus if nakakana. And then there's no need to spend a lot of years in studying, but it would be bonus if you're going to do so. Diba? So, however, here are the things that every graphic designer must have to become effective one. First is you need a portfolio. Say portfolio, it is an organized collection of selected artworks of a designer. Most company will prefer portfolios more than hiring graphic designers instead of any verbal background checking. The portfolio will show how talented the designer is, whom he or she worked with, and how long has he or she been doing graphic designing. So, okay, you're a graphic designer, you apply ka trabaho. Most company will prefer you providing them sa imong agi instead of mayong ka, uy, nag-study ko sa NORSU ba sa graphic design, usa ka semester, may kay ko ana, but wala kay kapakita. So you need a portfolio. You have to show them a portfolio. In fact, actually, allow me to show you my portfolio. Actually, na ako. Allow me to show it to you to give you an idea. So by showing the client a your portfolio, basically you are telling them that you've already worked with a lot of people, especially if you've worked with good companies already, then there are higher chance for you to get the job. Diba? There are high chance for you to be hired is because you've shown them what you are capable of doing. So allow me to show you my portfolio. It's uploaded in Instagram. I'm not sure kung ba here. Okay, so this is my portfolio. I'm just using Instagram. It doesn't really matter how you're going to do it, but this is mine. It's uploaded through Instagram. So basically, these are some. Not all of the artworks that I've done or graphic design that I've done, but these are just some of the designs that I've done throughout the years. So, ano, so by showing a portfolio to a company, or basically kinsa man asang ka na mo apply, then it'll give you one higher chance to be hired because you can show them kinsa na imong mga natrabaho before, unsa nakakadungay yung design, and what you really are capable of doing. So, next, you need visual thinking skills. So we already discussed it a while ago. While graphic designing is more about visual problem solving than just mere designing, being able to think visual and translate into output is one of the most important things to become a good designer. So not just kabalo ko drawing, you should be able to you should be able to think visually. No, you need to have a visual thinking skills. Third, you need to speak Adobe. Adobe editing software is currently the industry standard when it comes to graphic designing. While it really means you will focus only on Adobe, say ito ang grammar. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be Adobe. It is important if you know at least one Adobe editing software and must be very good at it. However, there are a lot of photo editing software available in the market. If you happen to know one, might as well be expert at it. So one of the things that every designer you know, should be is speak Adobe. Not necessarily have to be dili siya kinahanglan ng Adobe gyud, but since Adobe is the industry standard, so it would be best if you can learn at least one software na Adobe, let's say Photoshop, and you have to be very good at it because that basically mo na siya imuhang kumbaga mothership. If you'll be able to set Adobe Photoshop lang ka, and then you'll do it for any task, then do it. Okay. All right, and then next, I think this will be the last. What do graphic designers do? So, with the technology getting more digitalized than before, the number of jobs that require graphic designing skills are constantly expanding. Here are some of the works for graphic designers. We have creative director, art director, package designer, brand ID developer, art production manager, visual image developer, broadcast designer, so on and so forth. So actually, right now, daghan pang nadungag, especially since 2020 gyud, daghan na kaayo mga trends when it comes to graphic designing. Let's say NFT, non-fungible token, virtual reality. Yan na, kabantay mo atong ang atong Instagram na ay mga filter nga pwedeng usbon imong noun, pwedeng islan o iro ang imong noun, kapantay mo na. So that is called virtual reality, right? So that is wala na ako na nabutang dire, but that is one of graphic designers jobs, or one of the areas for graphic design. So it's not just using Adobe Photoshop, it's not just for Adobe Illustrator. You can you can also be a graphic designer if you can design virtual realities, if you can design package cover, something like that, logo designer, multimedia developer, web designer. That is areas that these are examples or the different areas for graphic design. So designing is not just about Adobe Photoshop, right? So there are tons of areas that you can perhaps imuhang sudlon when it comes to graphic design. These are some of the countless number of jobs a graphic designer can do. With the help of this course, you can be one of them and choose a job that fits your preference. So, for this course, I'm hoping that I will be able to introduce to you the industry standard application, perhaps teach you about the different principle of design, how to use the visual elements properly, and then maybe years from now, you can be one of the great, you know, graphic designers that NORSU can produce. So again, I'm just going to introduce to you the software, and it will be totally up to you to enhance your skill. All right. So that will be the end of our discussion. Do you have any question before we end? Do you have any questions, guys? Go ahead. Dahan. Okay. All right. So after this class, please to assess your learning from our class, not just the orientation. Please follow this link. I'm going to send it to you later on. The deadline will be tonight at March 11th, tonight at 11:59 p.m. And then for your assignment, I'm going to post it through our Google Classroom. But let me share it to you para basig na may question na daan. Hold on. I'm also going to post it through our Google Classroom. So, but let me just show it to you para makabalo mo daan and makaas mo questions for clarifications time. Okay. Babasa lang? Okay, so for assignment number one, Introduction to Graphics and Visual Computing. Direction. From the pictures shown, interpret and explain briefly how they are pleasing to the eye. Let's go back to our, diba? Let's go back to our, from the top. Okay. In graphic designing, your aim is to create something that is pleasing to the eye, gets the attention, and conveys message. Diba? That is our goal. So I'm going to show you pictures, graphic designs, and then you're going to explain briefly how they are pleasing to the eye, gets viewers' attention, and understand the message it conveys. Alright? So for example, the picture is pleasing to the eye because we're going to write it. It gets the viewer's attention through, then we're going to write it, the message it conveys are, is or are not. So I'm going to show you pictures, then the only thing that you're going to do is you're going to assess it or evaluate it and understand why is it pleasing to the eye, how it gets the viewer's attention, and the message. What is the message it conveys? Nasabtan lang? Okay. For example, this would be the first picture. Uh, Let me scroll it down. Alright, so this would be the first picture. Okay, so why is it pleasing to the eye? And ito, what is the message it's trying to convey? And ito, how it gets the viewer's attention. Ano? So this is one of the artworks I did for somebody. Okay, so you're going to evaluate it using this kane. And then next picture is, oops, nasaron dira. This is another graphic design that I did. Bagong pagsulay, bagong mabayani, new challenges, rising new heroes, for MSIT. Alright, so how it gets the attention, the viewer's attention, how is it placing in the eye, and what is the message it's trying to convey. That's picture number two. And lastly, picture number three, this. This is my favorite because this is a picture of me and my dog before he died. Okay, so it's me and my dog. All right, so you're going to evaluate how is it getting the viewer's attention, why is it placing to the eye, and what is the message that it's trying to convey. Okay, do you think you can do that? Deadline is Friday, March 18th, 2022. You can use any Microsoft Word or any document editing tools or write your interpretation on a separate sheet of paper and submit a photo of your work. So I'm going to post it in our Google Classroom. So do you have any questions regarding your assignment? None. All right. Sure. Okay. So just in case, guys, let me add if mo prefer mo ani if you prefer mo ani, write your interpretation on a sheet of paper and submit a clear photo of your work. Try to use this application. I would suggest to use this application. It's called Cam Scanner for Android. Try to use this app because it makes these scanned images a lot clearer. So you can either install it on your phone if you decided to write your interpretation on a sheet of paper and submit a clear photo of your work. So, kay dili kayo klaro pag camera nga itong camera app na gamiton, but if you're going to use this, it would be much clearer. Okay? Just a suggestion. Alright, so if there are no more questions, please turn on your cameras and let's take our class photo. Sayang kay nalay klase ang uban. Again, guys, next week I'm just going to schedule. I'm going to set this one. I'm going to set a schedule which is hopefully everybody is free. So not necessarily on a Friday. Okay, let's wait for everybody else. Please turn on your cameras, guys. Ako rin yung connection, may kamay rin yung turn on sa camera or wala dito turn on ba? Or, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Alright, so get ready. 3, 2, 1, smile. Ay, tayo sa usab-usab. Usab, kinatabunan. Ay, natabunan sa. Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay. Alright, thanks so much guys for attending the class. I'll see you in our next lesson next week. Or next week. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. You're welcome.